Chief Election Officer. Thank you for joining us tonight for the last candidates information session. There's a lot of information to digest for you as candidates, so we'll get started. Before we get started, we will begin with the land acknowledgement. The 2022 Vancouver election is taking place on the traditional, unceded, ancestral, and shared territories of the Hunkaminam Squamish-speaking peoples, including Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh. These nations have stewarded the lands since time immemorial. This session is being recorded. It will be available at vancouver.ca/vote after this event. We intend to keep our attendees anonymous. We will not mention the names of those asking a question. Only the organizers will see it. You may view more accurate transcription through the stream text link, which is now in the chat. Or you can also find it from the email that we sent out earlier today. We also have registered American Sign Language interpreters for the session. There is no need to worry about being mute, as we have deactivated this function. If you have a question for the panelists, we will address them at the end of the presentation. Please use this icon Q&A on your screen to leave your question. If you have technical questions or questions for our organizers, please use the chat button. The chat button will otherwise be deactivated for communicating with others to minimize disruptions. You may also use the closed captioning feature. As mentioned, we have a ton of information to share with you to help you through the process of getting your name on the ballot. You can submit your questions through the Q&A icon. If your questions has been answered during the presentation, I will move on to the next question. The first item on the agenda is about working for the community. Ultimately, council, city staff, park board, and school board all work for the good of the community. As such, the way in which services, including campaigns, are designed is important to ensure accessibility. Joining me tonight, Daniel Johnson, our Democratic Engagement Manager, pronouns she, her, is here tonight to provide some tips for you as you begin your campaign. Over to you, Daniel.
Thanks, Rosemary, and hi, everyone. So as Rosemary mentioned, we're going to talk about working with the community. Next slide, please. Vancouver has a lot of diversity, which means when you're thinking about how you are communicating with the public, there are a lot of questions you should be asking to support accessibility. We're using accessibility as a broad concept throughout this presentation. To us, accessibility includes physical, mobility, sensor, intellectual, mental, and social, and economic needs. Some key questions you may want to ask yourself and your campaign include, are you choosing physically accessible sites? How are you ensuring information is culturally appropriate? Are you considering language needs by translating information you are sharing? And what accessibility provisions are you providing? To break this down even further, let's look at physical accessibility. One important consideration is the physical accessibility of your events. Ideally, all spaces that you are campaigning in should be physically accessible. You may want to ask questions such as, if someone is in a wheelchair or uses a mobility aid, would they be able to navigate this space? Are there stairs they'd need to go up or narrow hallways that they might not fit through on a scooter? You will likely also want to think about individuals who have vision loss or vision challenges. For example, do any presentations or materials you are sharing have small fonts that might be hard for some to read. Similarly, you will want to think about individuals who are deaf or hard of hearing. You may want to consider providing closed captioning or ASL translation at your events. We would also like to say that if any organizations that are not political entities, such as political parties, want to host an all candidates meeting, we would be happy to help with promoting the event. And we will also be providing an all candidate meeting guidebook on our vancouver.ca/vote website, which will provide a number of tips around accessibility. Next slide, please. Another important consideration of accessibility is the inclusivity of your events. As we've already mentioned, Vancouver is an incredibly diverse city. So it's important that the way in which we engage with citizens are welcoming and inviting to all populations. This includes thinking about things like the cultural, economic, and social factors of communication and outreach. Some considerations you may want to think about are things like, are you including different communities in your campaign events? Are you working to ensure that you are addressing the wide range of issues that Vancouverites care about? Are you including individuals who can speak different languages to help at your events? Um, on the subject of language accessibility, we would encourage all of you, when possible, to try to translate your materials and resources into additional languages. For this election, our own election office will be translating election materials into the following 11 languages. These materials will include our core documents, such as the voter's guide and the voter's pamphlet, to ensure that people have basic information about how and when to vote. And with that, Rosemary, I'll hand it back to you. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Danielle. Next up, we have Justin Ramirez, pronounced she, her, is our election communications manager, and Justin will speak to the city's 2022 election branding. Over to you, Justine.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for that introduction, Rosemary. In terms of our branding, as a few of you might recall, so in 2018, the branding was focused more on individuals with keywords including responsibility and civic duty, and the team did a really great job. We did receive some comments from our community members to make our branding more inclusive. Our focus this time is about amplifying Indigenous teachings of this territory, such as listening to each other, lifting each other up, one heart, one mind, communicating voting as an act of generosity and care, to share the approach of voting as a contribution, to imagine and activate collaborative leadership, and to illustrate the strengths of our framing driven by inclusive values and community care. We are so honored to work with Nahanni Creative, which is led by Tatalia Michelle Nahanni. Uh, Nahanni Creative Incorporated is actually a social change agency. They catalyze social change with decolonial consulting, communication, and design. They are led by Squamish matriarchal ways of being in service of undoing colonial impacts. They collaborate with clients who share their commitment to decolonization, equity, and reconciliation. They're Squamish led, Squamish owned, and they build on Tatalia's more than 25 years of experience in Indigenous specific communications design. So we're very excited to work with them. Next slide, please. All right. So with that said, our branding is called Our Vancouver. And the essence that we're hoping to portray is equity, hope, imagination, being connected, and collaboration. As you can see, you'll see throughout this presentation, and as well over the next few months, this is our color palette. So please try to avoid using our color palette for this election to avoid confusion from voters on what is nonpartisan information. We will send you these colors and their exact swatches in your nomination package. You'll also see in the next few months these imagery in print, on social media, the voters' guides, our posters, and more. I also want to point out that in the Vancouver Votes logo, this was designed by Tatalia. The emblem is the Salish eye form. The Salish eye, also known as the creator's eye, watches over the past, present, and future generations. In this contemporary version of the traditional host nation form line, Tatalia is wrapping the election type logo and lifting it up with a design she calls Salish Forward. By centering the iconography of this territory within the municipal election, Tatalia aims to center the teachings of this territory, including collective, intergenerational care, by framing the act of voting as an act of care, an act of accountability, and an act of generosity. Thank you so much, and back to you, Rosemary.
Thank you, Justine, for the branding overview. Our next item on the agenda is about the support you can tap into as a candidate. The election office is available to assist you with the nomination process, and that is coming up fairly quickly at the end of August. The nomination package will be available on July 18th at the election office or at City Clerk's office on the third floor at City Hall. Make sure you have more than 25 nominators signing your document. Voters can challenge the eligibility of your nominators. If you fail to have 25 nominators, it means that your nomination will not be valid and your name will not be on the ballot. You need to check that each of your nominator has their full address, including postal code. Make sure you make an appointment to submit your nomination document so we have adequate time to review your documents with you. We will start taking appointments on August 15th. I strongly suggest that you don't wait until 3 p.m. on the last day of nomination. If your document is incomplete, you will risk not having enough time to submit by the deadline, which is 4 o'clock on September 9th. Elections BC is available to you should you have any questions about spending limits or advertising. If you are part of a political party, the political party must register with Elections BC or they cannot endorse you as their candidate. This means you will have to run as independent. Other resources available would be all candidates meetings. As mentioned by Danielle, we will help support organizations putting this together. The information will be posted on the city's election website. Candidates will be invited to participate, and this is your opportunity for the public to get to know you. Women Transforming Cities were guest speakers at our first candidates information session and provided valuable tips to candidates. You can view that recording on our website and also check out their website at womentransformingcities.org. Now a bit more about the nomination process. Political party, as mentioned, must register with Elections BC, and the deadline to do that is August 2nd. Nomination documents are posted for public inspection. Home addresses of candidates and nominators are redacted online, but not on the hard copies that we make available at the election office or at City Hall for inspection. We will post the nomination documents shortly after receiving it. The challenge of the nomination period begins on August 30th until September 19th. 25 nominators are required, as mentioned earlier. Please make sure you have at least a few extras in case your nominators are not eligible to nominate you. Appointments are required to submit those documents. And as mentioned earlier, the last day is the worst day. You may not have any appointments available or risk incomplete submission by the deadline. Candidates that are running with parties will be booked together. Ensure nominators' documents information are all there and correct, so please check them before we meet. Your nomination can be challenged on these, but not limited to, if your nominator is not a valid Vancouver resident, if you have less than qualified nominators, or your ballot name is not in fact the usual name of the candidate. Candidate withdrawal can happen up until September 16th. After this date, ministry approval is required. Something I wanted to mention is new this year in your nomination package. We will be collecting socioeconomic information from candidates, and this is completely voluntary, which is available in your nomination package for research purposes as to the diversity of Vancouver candidates and elected officials. This information will be kept confidential, and no individual level information will be shared. Part of your nomination document includes your biography and photo. Your biography is limited to 150 words. No editing will be done by our office, and the version that's submitted is the final version. You won't be able to make changes once you submit it. No discriminatory or offensive language, and this should be submitted before September 9. It is recommended that you have this ready before you submit your nomination documents. We'll have the template available online, and the biography must be submitted online along with your photo. And again, instructions will be included in the package. Also note that each candidate is entitled to request for one copy of the voters list. Before you receive it, you must sign a declaration of use, which is limited to the election. And you're required to destroy the list after the election. Another note around the ballot, it's the random ballot draw, which will take place on September 16th. The draw determines the placement of your name on the ballot. Each name will have a number, which we hope will be easier for candidates to campaign with and for voters to remember your number. As a candidate, you may appoint someone as your official agent. Appointments should be included in your nomination document, and you should be submitted with your nomination package. Updates can be made, but you need to let the election office know. An official agent is not mandatory, as you can also represent yourself. On the form, you would indicate that if you're representing yourself. A financial agent is required for each candidate. This is an important role, as this person is responsible for tracking your campaign finances. If you don't have an account yet, a bank account, you need to open one as soon as possible. If the bank needs a letter, Elections BC can provide one for you. Candidates can also be their own financial agent. The financial agent is the main contact for Elections BC. A candidate can decide to change who their financial agent is, but you must notify us. If the change occurs before the election results are declared, that information is given to the election office. If it's after the election results are declared, this information is to be given to Elections BC. So the forms for the official agent and financial agent are in the nomination package. Next topic is around campaigning. Contact Elections BC to get clarification around advertising. Any questions you have, don't hesitate to call them because the rules are very complex and they have a team of staff ready to help you with any questions. There are specific rules around advertising on election day, so make sure you are aware of them. Election signs must not be within 100 meters of a voting place on voting days. Election office will contact candidates or the candidates' agents for removal of any signs in violation. Signs are permitted 45 days prior to general voting day on private property or designated areas of the city under the street and traffic bylaw. Failure to remove the signs could result in fines under the Vancouver Charter. Now, after the election, all your signs must be removed within 48 hours, which is October 17th. The sign information and regulations is available on our website now and will be included in your nomination package as well. If you haven't signed up for updates from our election office, please do so because we will be posting important information for you as a candidate. University endowment lands and UBC lands residents there can only vote for school trustees, and they also have the electoral aid director for Metro Vancouver election. So the ballot that they will get for the residents there will only have the school trustee race. Next one is scrutineers. Appointment of your scrutineers it can be done before voting begins. This form is in the nomination package, and you can make copies of them depending how many scrutineers you have. Scrutineer appointment form is to be carried by your scrutineers to the voting place and provided to the presiding election official when they arrive. Each candidate can appoint one scrutineer for every ballot box in use. Now, any complaints regarding scrutineers must be dealt with by the candidate or the candidate's official agent. Scrutineers can visually inspect ballot tabulators, ballot boxes, assistive ballot marking devices if available, ballots, and all other election documents. They can observe the voting and accounting process. They can challenge a voter's right to receive a ballot, but must raise that before the ballot is issued. Scrutineers may be asked to witness a zero tape count of the ballot tabulator just prior to the start of voting, or sealing a ballot box. They can also sign the results tape generated by the ballot tabulator at the end of the day, and also record the result by hand from the tape. The presiding election official will direct scrutineers to the area designated in the voting place, and the scrutineers must remain at that station. They can visually inspect ballot tabulators as mentioned, but they cannot interfere with the voting procedures or touch any voting materials. Scrutineers will be required to wear masks at voting places. We will provide a guideline for scrutineers during the nomination submission where we meet. Finally, the use of cell phone, excuse me, it can be used for texting or emailing. You cannot use the camera from your phone or have any campaign materials inside the voting place or within 100 meters within the voting place. So election rules, a little bit more about this, what you should be aware of. Vote buying and intimidation. You cannot induce or bribe a voter to vote or not vote, to vote for or against a candidate. These are very specifically laid out in the Vancouver Charter and fines associated with it. Be aware of where you set up your campaign office, especially if it's near a voting place. Campaigning is allowed, but not during voting days. And if you have any displays in your windows, you must remove them. Voting locations and places will be published in early September on our website. Other complaints that we get would be the signage being placed within 100 meters. So we will contact the candidates or the official agents to have them removed immediately. Other examples of complaints that we get, handing out flyers to voters just outside the entrance of the voting place, or doing a media scrum within 100 meters of the voting place. As mentioned, the penalties could be a fine and or combination of imprisonment. If convicted, you will not be allowed to run for up to 7 years. So post-election, what happens after that? So before we get into that, again, a reminder for you to submit your questions to the Q&A icon on your screen before the end of the presentation. Campaign finance disclosure. All candidates are required to file this document with Elections BC within 90 days after general voting day. So this form is different from the statement of financial disclosure that you will get in your nomination package. This is where it is important for you to appoint a responsible financial agent and keep Elections BC informed of any changes. Elections BC will send out reminders way before January 13, 2023 to remind you to submit that document. If it's not filed within 90 days, there's a late filing penalty. And also failure to file could also result in disqualification from running in the next election. Once your campaign disclosure form is submitted to Elections BC, your nomination deposit that we collect will be processed within 4 weeks by the election office. The city will mail you a check. The challenge period. The challenge period begins after the declaration of official results on October 19th. A voter, a candidate, or the chief election officer can make an application to the court to challenge the elected candidate or the validity of the election. The court must have a decision by 4 p.m. on November 18th. Now, the inauguration, after the declaration of the official result on October 19th, elected officials will be contacted soon after. Arrangements to meet with me for council races will take place shortly after the declaration of the result. When we meet, I will walk you through the process of onboarding and what to expect on Inauguration Day. Briefings with staff will start shortly after. Remember that it will be a very hectic time for you from the time you start your campaigning, if you haven't yet, until around just before Christmas if you're elected. If you have vacation plans for after the election to celebrate, it's probably a good idea to put them on hold until Christmas. You will hit the ground running for the next 6 months. There are some important meetings that you should not miss before Christmas should you be elected. For example, budget approval, staff briefings where we inform you of the protocol and processes of meetings. The next couple of slides will be just some screenshots of what the forms look like if you are not familiar with them. And these are the ones that I wanted to flag for you. So this first one is where each nominator will complete their information. As mentioned before, you need to check that each name has a complete address information, including the postal code and a signature. Make sure they print, not write, so we can read them. Reminder that they must be residents of Vancouver or we cannot count them towards your 25 required nominators. When we meet with you to review your nomination documents, you will need to make a declaration noted here on the slide. There are 8 bullet points. And you can also make the same declaration in front of a commissioner for taking affidavits for BC. Most candidates will do it at the time that they submit the application with me. The next form is if you are appointing a financial agent, this is the information you complete. And if you change it, as mentioned before, you will need to resubmit this form. This is the form that we provide to Elections BC. And remember, you can also be your own financial agent. In your nomination package, you will need to submit the statement of disclosure. I cannot give you advice on how to complete it, so if you need assistance, the best that you seek help. This form is available for inspection as required under the legislation. This form is different from the one that you would submit to Elections BC to disclose your campaign expenses. The same form will need to be completed in January should you get elected. So before we take questions, a few things to keep in mind. Voters in 2018 said there were too many candidates. They didn't know enough about the candidates and their platforms. We encourage you to attend all candidates meetings, which we will post on our website. Now get out there to the community at events. The new campaign rules are in place to improve the playing field for independent candidates. Elections BC will be your source. On election night, unofficial results will be available on our website starting 9 p.m. The official results will be declared by 4 p.m. on October 19th. Thank you. We will now have time for some of your questions. I will read out the questions without identifying who asked the question. If we don't get to your questions, please email us at election@vancouver.ca. So we'll get started with questions. First one, how do you start the official process of getting nominated? Yes, this is why you attend this session. So the first thing you need to do is pick up the form from the election office and have that form completed by your nominators. So I've shown you pieces of it. You need their address and signature. Make sure you get at least 25 signatures and go through all the forms. There's probably about 20 pages that you need to complete. If you have any questions about the form, please contact the election office. Second question, what do I do if I see someone who is vote buying? That information will be passed on to us. Call the election office and we will get the details from you and look into it. The third question is, all candidates are required to file campaign financial disclosure forms with Elections BC within 90 days after the general voting day. This form is different. How are these forms different? So Elections BC will submit a form to you. It's not the one that they require is not part of the nomination package. They will contact you. That's why it's important for you to make sure you keep the information of your financial agent updated. Any changes, let us know, let them know. They will email you that form or send that form to you. The next question is, will debates be televised like provincial or federal elections do? I think in the past they have for the mayoral race. We don't really um, we we don't support it in the sense that we televise it, but I think a lot of organization we could tell them it's a good idea. It's probably a good idea to see what they can do with making it available, whether it's streaming, not necessarily live on not televised, but have it available on the different like Zoom or whatever it is, just so it's more accessible to people. So we will have that information as part of our guide for organization or putting the meetings together. The next question is, how do I get my nomination package? It will be available on July 18th, so you can come and pick it up from the election office, or the information is on our website or at City Hall. The next question is, will the ballot number be printed on the ballot in addition to the number being placed in order of the name? So each race will have a unique number. It will be in sequence. It will be printed next to the name. So hopefully I've answered that question. If not, please send another one to clarify. Can I use this translated information from the election office in my materials? So Justine, are you there? I guess it would be depending on what type of information you're using. If it's to repeat the day of the voting days, that's completely fine. I'm not sure, Justine, do you know we have clarification on this?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that Danielle is actually leading is this community resources hub with a lot of information, including the pamphlets that could be printed out. Ultimately, like we want people to have the right information and also in a timely manner. So we're going to have all resources translated. Please share them with your supporters. They are out there for a reason. And we're also, you could also print out the pamphlets, but please make sure to um, to keep it as it is, and that to not alter any of it so that it looks like it's promoting a certain candidate or not, because ultimately we do want your supporters to have them, and they will be available, and we just want to make sure that people have accurate information. Thank you.
Thanks, Justine. I think what it's important is, we would love to have you share the information around voting, the information around what's required, for example, identification, the voting days, the location, those kind of the information that we would be more than happy for you to get out there for us as well. So hopefully that answers your question. If not, please do submit another question to clarify. The next question is, can nominators nominate more than one candidate? Absolutely, yes, they can. I cannot stress the importance of getting more than 25 nominators. Every time we had to turn away candidates because the information is incomplete, or they have somebody from Surrey nominating them, so we can't accept those nominators. So please be careful with that. Can I get help to complete candidate forms? We can help you, explain to you what you need to do. So if that's the kind of help you need, absolutely, we can walk you through it. We cannot help complete the form, write it in for you. So hopefully that's what you're asking. Clarification on the forms, what's required, we definitely are your resource for that. Please talk a little bit about advanced voting. Okay, so advanced voting, the dates we will have a number of dates in early October, and we have more locations this year, and we will publish that information very shortly. So please go on our website to get that information. What are the qualifications of the nominators? So we have that information again on your form, and they have to be eligible electors. So if you can vote in the Vancouver election, then you are an eligible elector. The next question is, where is the election office? The election office is on West 8th. The address is 305 West 8th. And the office is not open yet. We will open the office on July 18th. The next question is, oh, I lost it. Should voters register anywhere or just having an ID including resident address is enough? So if voters are already, if they voted in the last provincial election, they would be included in the Vancouver voters list. They can update their information. Again, all that information is on our website. It would have the requirements to register. So 2 pieces of ID, but there's other exceptions that we can accept. So if you have somebody asking about that, please refer them to our website or call 311. The next question is, I won't go into too much detail. I heard that it's very difficult to get elected as an independent candidate for school trustee. Can you offer specific advice? We covered this in our session, session number 1, where, for example, Women Transforming Cities and our guest speakers offer some advice around that. So I highly encourage you to listen to that recording. And then if you have any questions, again, please do contact us and we will help you as best as we can. But there's lots of resources on there. The other thing I want to mention is the ministry also has a lot of information around what you can do as a candidate and also tips. So there's videos, there's pamphlets. Again, we have all that information on our website and we continue to update it. So that's why it's really important that if you haven't signed up, please do sign up because that's where you can get the information. The next question is there information from 2018 about voters that I can use? No. So what happens is under the Vancouver Charter, any election materials that we used in 2018, we have to destroy by a specific date. We cannot retain it for another election. So you would have to wait until September when you can get the information. So the next question is, how do you become affiliated with the party? So the party, they have their own processes on how to nominate candidates. So you would, depending who you're interested in, you would need to contact them directly. We would not be able to help you facilitate that discussion. Are there any unique instructions for school board trustee nominees or procedures for elected officials the same? So the nomination package is a very good question. Nomination package, you'll see there's 2 sets of form that look very similar. The one is for mayor, council, and park commissioner, and there's a second one that's specific for school trustee. The information is the same, but we just made it a little bit easier just because of the jurisdiction for school board trustees. It's noted on the form. So when you get the package, just make sure you flip through the different forms and you can see that there's the one for school board trustee is very specific with the jurisdiction number 39 on it. Can I use my traditional name, which is not English? Will it be on the ballot? So I went briefly over what is required. So it must be your legal name or the name that you are known. So if your traditional name is the name that you go with, yes, you can have that on the ballot. The next question is, what happens if a party misses a filing deadline? Filing deadline, as in if you're referring to the Elections BC registration, I will contact them and see what they can do for you. Again, the deadline is not until August 2nd, so you still have time to do it, but that is the deadline. If this is not what you're asking, do please submit another question to clarify that. Next question. What if there is a number assigned to me that is unlucky in my culture? Can I change a different number? So good question. We've done research on what numbers to avoid, and we have taken that into consideration. But you cannot change a number once we assign it. And what we have to consider to also for voters and the candidates, how is it easy for them to remember the number? What any beliefs that we have to for candidates we have to take into consideration. So we have taken that into consideration. So yes, you cannot change your number once it's assigned to you. Will it be possible to submit nomination documents electronically? Yes, you can. However, I would recommend that you submit. We will need the original submitted by a certain date. So you can submit it. We can have a look at it, but we still need the original with your signature. So my recommendation for you is to bring the original as early as possible. You still need an appointment, but in case there's anything missing, you don't want to submit that late. The next question is around voting. How can people vote? What are their options? So we highly recommend people to vote during advance voting to avoid the lineups. There's always a general voting day. And the third option would be the vote by mail, which is now with the change in the legislation that is open to anyone that is an eligible voter. So they can request a vote by mail ballot and submit it and send it in or drop it off once it's marked. Can we do anything before July 18th? So I think you're referring to whether you can start your nominations. The forms won't be available until the 18th. So what you can do is start gathering your supporters and then have it ready to go on July 18th. The next question is around park board, number of hours doing business. So we still have some time, so I will take this question. The meetings are usually at night, which is different from council meetings. So typically the board meeting will start at 7. And I believe they are on either Monday night or Tuesday. So hopefully that answers your question. The next one is, will scrutineers see the vote in every ballot to make sure the machine is counting the votes properly? You can see it. I'm not sure if I understand this question. See the ballot. I should that question. You can see the ballot reading. It won't give you the count. The ballot tabulator machine is programmed so it accepts certain markings. So for example, if the markings are not dark enough, it'll spit it back and say it's not clear. So the voter would have a chance to remark and make it darker, for example. But they won't see how many, so for a candidate, they won't see that there's 3 votes for the candidate. That comes, we can't do the results until after the end of voting, which is after 8 o'clock. Why are you collecting demographic info for candidates? Again, this is part of our study that we want to do to see how we can help future candidates, what are the obstacles that they are facing running as candidates. We don't have this information right now. Again, it's completely voluntary. So if you don't feel comfortable submitting that question, you don't have to. But it is for us to do research and to see for future planning what else we can do to help candidates. Can you please clarify more about the randomized visualization of candidate names and number on the ballot. Basically, what would a voter see? So what the voter will see is, I'm going to use the mayoral race. They will see the numbers will be pre-assigned, and when we draw the name, it will be drawn against the first number. That's how we would see it. And then the candidate, for example, if we use the number 70 as the first number, the first name drawn would be number 70, and that name is right beside the candidate's name. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay. How much does it cost to run? Is there a minimum maximum amount for campaigning? Yeah, how much does it cost to run? It's really depending on what you're spending on. Again, this information, there is a maximum. You need, I believe it's just over $1,000 or $1,200. So Elections BC website will have the information for you, and they're the one that can tell you what the maximum is. They're more concerned about the maximum. So please contact them to get the information. What does a candidate have to do leading up to the election? This question was actually brought up in our previous session. This is the time, now that you're waiting for the nomination documents to be available, this is the time where you gather your supporters, get your support system in place before you do that. And your support system can help you with getting your nominators and getting your advertising, whatever you need you to do to get your name out there. Organize events, find out what events are happening. That sort of campaigning, you can start now. Speaking English fluently is essential to be a candidate for public office. Is it a barrier to be part of council if elected? No, I don't know if you can. The person asking this question can maybe elaborate a little bit more. Is it to be participating in meetings? So I'm just gonna maybe leave it at that and see if the person asking the question can clarify a little bit more, or if what you can do is contact us, email us, and we can provide clarification on that, because I'm not sure exactly what is asked there. If people are voting by mail, can my team help drop a ballot to the election office? If somebody is not able to deliver it, yes, they can help deliver it. But for pickup, there's very specific instructions about picking up the ballots for somebody. So, but dropping it off, yes, they can. Is there any information about barriers people faced in 2018 when trying to vote? I'm gonna call, Danielle, are you still on the line?
Hi, I'm here.
Hi there. I don't know if you remember, I heard my question. There was a question from one of our attendees. Is there any information about barriers people face in 2018 when trying to vote? Are you able to explain that from what we heard in 2018? Great, thank you.
Absolutely, I'm happy to. So in 2018, we did run a post-election survey that asked people who didn't vote what some of the challenges they faced were. And I think Rosemary's already alluded to some of the outcomes of this survey. It is available on the City of Vancouver's website if you want to dig in.
Testing for TELUS.
But the two most common reasons people gave for not voting were there were too many candidates and they didn't know enough about the issues. So we do really encourage all of our candidates, if you have an opportunity to get out into community, to share your message and to share information about the roles and responsibilities of local government, it's a great way to address some of those challenges. Our own election office will be sharing a wide range of educational resources that you can direct people to in our community hub. We also know a really common challenge and barrier is around language access, which is why we're translating to so many languages. And again, as Justine said, we want to get that information into community. So please do feel free to share it as long as you're not altering the information in any way. I think that's a decent general overview, but if there's specifics, please let me know.
Thanks, Danielle, for that. I think the last question we have left is, will there be a list of important dates following the election for any new councillors? Once you're elected, you, as mentioned before, you'll have a lot of briefings that you'll need to attend and council meetings. In fact, on inauguration day, once you are sworn in, you have your first council meeting that night at 5 p.m. So it's, like I said, very, very hectic time once you're elected until the Christmas break. So any scheduled vacation, best that you postpone them until after that. We will have those important dates leading up to the election for you included in your nomination package. We will be available to answer any questions that you may have when you get those forms. You'll have plenty of time from the 18th until when you actually submit your nomination documents with me. That is starting on October, not October, August 30th. So it's important that you have the information. Oops. Oh, I thought I lost everyone. It's important that you have the information in the package in your information, look through it, and then again with the nominators, that's one thing I cannot stress enough. And the second one that I want to stress for you is your biography and photo. Please make sure you have that ready to go, and that's something you can actually do now before the nomination period on August 30th. So getting your photo done and getting what we'll have the information on the package for you, and you can write out your biography as well, and the template will be available as well. So those are the things that we can do ahead of time. And make sure you make an appointment, because if you come in without an appointment and there are people that we're helping, we won't be able to serve you, and you will have to wait until the next available time. Again, it's very short time for us to, there's a lot of candidates that we have to process, very short time frame. Secure your time as early as possible. Again, we will have staff ready to help you from August 30th to September 9th. Any questions, again, feel free to reach out, email us between now and the election office opening. We can provide as much as possible for you. So other than that, there's no other questions. I just want to thank you very, very much for spending the time with us. For those who were involved in putting this session together, our staff, closed captioners, and registered ASL interpreters. Thank you for attending in person or online, whether this is your first session or you've attended all four. We hope it was helpful to you. The recording of this session will be available on our website with transcripts soon. So, but you see other sessions already from previously posted on our website at vancouver.ca/vote. When you exit this platform, you will be directed to our feedback form, or you can click on the feedback form in the chat. We'll also email it to you as well. So good luck with your campaigning. We look forward to meeting you and receiving your documentation. Have a good night.